So open that page, I'll search for my fix, find what I need in the deep dark abyss.
Welcome, everybody, to the AI Skeptics podcast. We have Celeste Kidd here with us. And now Celeste was the very first guest we ever had on our very first episode. So it's like really exciting to have her back. And one of the reasons we had her back, actually, I mean, not the only reason, because we always plan to do that, but like one of the major reasons, I figured it out even before the first episode was over, was that we didn't even get to anything that Celeste actually does. Like she's just such an interesting person that she could talk for many, many hours without ever divulging a specific thing about what she's actually doing for work. So this time we are going to focus up. Celeste, are you ready for this?
I'm ready to focus. That's
Buckle
so
up.
nice. That's like the nicest thing anybody's ever said about me. Thanks, Kathy.
Just like a little too interesting. Sorry,
just
but
like your drum
it's a
roll
dynamic,
to what you do
I want to
was
point
so
out, though, it's a
good.
dynamic thing. It's talking to you guys, and I was like,
it's a feedback
energy.
mechanism for
I'm
sure.
interesting when talking to you guys.
It's a love fest over here. Yep. So Celeste, just remind people of who you are, and I will give you the following prompt, which is tell us how you set up your lab at Berkeley, because it's fascinating and wonderful.
Sure. So my name is Celeste Kidd. I run a lab at UC Berkeley that works on how people and animals form beliefs, mostly people, but sometimes animals. We also work on things like how, as people are forming their beliefs, new advancements, for example, as like AI technologies that are presented to people as good ways of curating information for people that are interested in a new topic, how those systems interact with human belief formation processes and may, in many instances, sort of corrupt those processes.
And I will just interrupt you for a moment to mention.
I was in focus mode. I got to get out of it.
We didn't get to your lab or your work in our first episode. We did get to the inspiration for your lab, I believe, because you were like talking about your early work as a journalist and how you like had this amazing understanding of something, and your editor just couldn't understand it, right? Is that is that the kind of thing you study in your lab?
Yeah, so that was really the seed. We talked about the seed, but then not what it grew into, I guess.
Yes.
The seed that got me interested in this topic was trying to be an investigative reporter and finding that there was a difference between the like strength of the evidence I put in front of somebody and how effective it was at changing their minds. I was really effective. I had processed a lot of data, and I'd practiced like writing in a really clear way so that I could communicate it to other people, and I thought that was sufficient. And when I was actually working as a reporter, I was surprised at how sometimes when you put a lot, especially when you put a lot of good information in front of somebody, their eyes glaze over. It doesn't change their mind at all. A lot of what the lab works on is understanding exactly like why that kind of thing happens, and what is it that allows somebody to be in a position to change their mind, to update in accordance with new data that's in front of them. And maybe the heart of some of the important work that the lab has done has been discoveries around the fact that even though we all feel like we're infinitely open to changing our minds, we have really, really limited abilities to intake information. My favorite example is the fact that we only have one set of eyes. You only have one set of eyes. They can only be one place in any given moment. And if you are looking in one direction, you're not looking in the other direction. I was like, if I'm looking at you guys on my computer screen, I was like, I'm not looking out the window. And if something happens out there, I'm going to miss it. And so, it's not a question of me not wanting to know what is true in the world. I think a lot of people are familiar with things like sampling biases. Like if you believe something, then you tend to notice evidence in support of the thing you already believe, and you tend to not notice evidence against it. There are things like that, but a lot of what limits us as biological agents that are trying to know what's true in the world is just the fact that like we have to sample, you have to pick a subset, and we have really smart mechanisms in place that allow us to do that in a pretty good way.
Okay, so what you've said already has prompted me to go into to branch out into two different directions, and I think you'll appreciate these two directions. One is children, and the other one is like LSD or mushroom trips, right? Because it's like, because those are a perfect pairing right there. No, but like, children they don't have already like a bunch of ridiculously rigid belief systems. Like that's what's cool about them.
They also don't know anything.
They don't know anything. They don't have prejudice yet,
No.
And then like the only time adults can possibly say that is if they're super high. Like that's my theory. But I'd love to hear your educated response.
No, that's a great, yeah. So, mushrooms or LSD, do a lot of things to our brains. But one of the things that it does is it lowers, executive function. So you can think of it as like impulse control, frontal lobe stuff. It makes you more open to, things that are in front of you. I mentioned the eye example as like a limiting factor in how much information we can intake, but there's also cognitive limits. So like you can't listen to you can't listen to, for example, 10 podcasts at once, sped up 10 times. So like you cannot intake actually even more than one, linguistic stream at a time. So we have to pick and choose. And what we know about, let's go with adults to start with. I was like, what we know about adults, is in their everyday lives, how they're picking and choosing is they're picking stuff that is close to things that they already understand something about. So they have some background. If you know a lot about, I don't know, the Renaissance, period in history, then you tend to want to know more stuff about that. But we also have a bias to, pick out stuff about which we are uncertain. I was like, you don't want to hear the same things that you already know repeated back at you. That would be really boring. People are only open to changing their minds.
Somewhat familiar, but not too familiar.
Yeah, this was some of the lab's early work. I was like, we called this the Goldilocks effect, and it turns out it's not just a thing in adults; it's also a thing as early as we can test it in human infants. We want stuff that is a little bit different from what we already understand, but not so different that we don't have a way to like attach it to the knowledge that we already have. Kids are more open to more things because they don't have any anchors to attach anything to.
Right.
So if you're a kid and you know nothing, I think kids sometimes look more curious to adults because like anything you put in front of them, they're like, that's that piece of tape on the carpet. That's interesting. I don't know anything about that. They're more willing to accept anything because they don't have any built up expertise yet. Adults that have built up expertise, their eyes, they're just like my editors. So like their eyes glaze over if you're talking about stuff that's too distinct from what they already understand. And that's not because they're bad people. It's not because they're like biased in some sort of way that they don't want to hear that they're wrong. I was like, it's just because we have limits on how much information we can intake and how rapidly. Yeah. And just like you only have two eyes, you can only look in one place. You can only process so much information at a time.
I mean,
so you brought up
this makes me want to ask about
sorry.
I want to ask you about, like, you've now used the phrase change your mind a few times. Yes. So how do people change their mind? When can they change it or not? I'm wondering in your lab, how you define or measure changing your mind. Like, let me give a little background. I've used to work in behavioral science consultancy in the sort of like hype era of behavioral economics when, lay people like myself were starting to learn about cognitive biases, exactly the kinds of things you mentioned before. We tend to remember information that confirms prior beliefs, not information that challenges it. Things like this, like the ways that our mind works in predictably irrational ways in the Dan Ariely book title. Anyway, there's this clued me into the notion that you can think about changing a mind from a neurological level, the connections of the different, neurons. You can think about changing mind in terms of attitudes and beliefs that come out in a survey when you ask somebody, like, what do you think about X topic? So can you tell me a little bit for a kid lab, like, what does it mean to change one's mind? Is it a neurological thing? Is it an opinions thing? How do you measure that kind of thing?
Well, I think the short answer is it's all of those things. So like any belief change that you have, there are biological, neurological underpinnings to that shift. My lab typically focuses on the cognitive level. I was like, so the level about you, like, I was like, would you report that you think that this is true? Maybe a useful way of thinking about it too is thinking about all of the possible statements that could exist about things in the world, you have probabilistic expectations about all of them, even if you're hearing about something for the first time. So, what is the probability that you think that Epstein was eating babies, as an example? Maybe you've never heard that suggestion before, but I can ask you, how likely do you think that is to be true? Right. And on the spot, you can come up with some probability that you think that that's true or not. At the maximum point of uncertainty, you'd maybe say 50-50. So I think it's possible he was eating babies. I think it's possible that he wasn't. I don't know at all, so it's exactly 50-50. A lot of what we do in the lab, we test beliefs in different ways. We test interest in different ways because we're looking for convergent evidence. But some of the studies use that as the method. So give people a statement, say, how likely do you think this is to be true? And then we can introduce different conditions, different interventions, and see how that might shift you around. Is that helpful?
Totally helpful. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what I like about that is that it's like shifting us to the second topic of today, which is like results. So I want to know, did Epstein eat babies?
Yeah.
I also.
Since you have run that study.
Like, come on.
Through the IRB.
I thought that was, I would have given that a very, very low rating not that long ago, but one of the things that's interesting, I talked to a friend that thinks that he was part of a group of people that was eating babies, and this is a person that I know really well who makes good decisions, I think, for good reasons, and it's a person that I like. It's a person that I trust. I was noting that just one person believing something that you didn't think was likely has a huge impact.
That's what. Oh my God! Yes. Like, do you study cults?
Well, not directly, but I was like, I am interested in some of the dynamics. I think we have some understanding of some of those things.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things you could apply.
That's one of my hobbies is to watch like cult documentaries on Netflix. Like, seriously. Like, how do people get it? Like, they're adults usually. That's what's crazy about it. Like, does that fly in the face of all your research that people never change their mind?
Oh, no. I mean, I think within a cult, somebody joining a cult is an example of like very rapid belief change. It's like getting brought into a group, where you believe all of these things. Yeah. And one of the fundamental things that I think is important to understand about like cult recruitment is, all of them typically have recruitment methods that are looking for people that are vulnerable, that are not sure about things. It's like a lot of them recruit by having like seminars that have titles like "Don't know what to do with your life." It's like "Don't have any friends, don't know what's true." I was like, they're specifically looking for people that are very open-minded because those people are more malleable and easy to get to like come over to a particular set of beliefs. And then you move them over to a very, very specific set of beliefs that then alienates them from other people in the general population and prevents them from being able to connect and get help because they can't even explain what they're going through. Nixium was a cult in upstate New York that was a great example of that. It was like the things that they were made to believe, the things they were made to go through. There were women that were brought into that knew that something was wrong, wanted to get help, but when they go to start explaining what they believe to somebody else, the eyes glaze over. It's like they couldn't get help from outside because they're intentionally shifted to worldviews that are deviant. So one of the discoveries that I think is really important that the lab has made was work that was led by Evan Orticio that was specifically about these sort of group dynamics. He found that giving somebody even a very small sample of information about what other people believe, rapidly shifted people over to that view, even though they were not aware that they were influenced by this, even though in his study, they were not people that, they had any opinion about what the quality of this information was or, any personal attachment to.
Just knowing that other people believe it is like makes you want to believe it.
Yes. And it's especially true. The effect is strongest when you don't know at all. So if you're asking me about Epstein and eating babies for the first time and I have no idea. But if I, get just a little bit of evidence that most people believe that, unconsciously and very rapidly, I believe that's more likely to be true. And that sounds like it might be a bad thing. Conformity. It kind of sounds like conformity, but it's not at all because that's how we function as humans. Like we have to.
Speaking of bad and good things like at the beginning of this conversation, I was just like, oh man, I wish I was more open-minded. Like, because as soon as you said like people don't change their mind, I'm like, I want to be one of those people that change their mind. I want to be open. But now I'm thinking, I don't want to be a cult. I don't want to be in a cult.
You don't want to be too open. Yeah, we all function approximately the same way from my lab's perspective, and it's a pretty good solution to a big problem. I think the important insight from the perspective of thinking about AI is that human intelligence, like us as a population, is distinct from any other animal species because we know less as individuals. We hyper specialize. And that means that we have to rely on each other for information. So having these built-in mechanisms where you're like, I don't know, what do other people believe? Okay, I'm going to go with that. I was like, that's a great solution to the problem of it's impossible for you to directly sample all of the evidence exhaustively
yourself. But it's not a great solution in the age of social media.
Well, it's a solution that causes some problems. And
I mean, it might have been a great solution back in the day, but
it leaves people open to some systematic distortions of their beliefs that could affect the whole population. I was like, so maybe that's, I don't know if that's where you want to go next. Like that is
that's where I want to go next. How have you been studying that? I mean, like, what you're talking about is so well suited to the attention economy, right? It's like the eyes and the information that other people think exists too. And so it's like tunnel vision and attention. Like, so you must have a lot to say about all of the social media, like misinformation world.
Yeah, I do have a lot to say about that. And especially like the current trend towards like agentive AI being held up as a technology that is good for humanity, that will give everybody better access to information. That I find that deeply, deeply disturbing for so many reasons. Like the idea that you can have intelligence that's one agent that knows everything that's not what human intelligence is. We have computers and planes and all that stuff because we don't listen to one source. You need diversity of opinions. You need diversity of beliefs. This is going to sound weird, but you need people having the wrong idea in order to innovate and make progress. So I was like, I really don't like that.
Let me jump on what you said, because Kathy, when you brought in the social media idea, like, I actually think of AI and social media as being quite different in this regard, but like I really would be happy to be corrected or talk about it. It's like on social media, there are zillions of voices and they're being curated for you in a feed by some kind of algorithm. So you're not hearing really diversity of voices, but like you're hearing from a bunch of, let's say, separate individuals, and you're getting some type of like curated stream. If you're talking to an AI chatbot, like you're just in front of one fire hose, and it's a fire hose that's tailored for you, as that chatbot is talking to you in a very authoritative tone, but it's like the one voice. And I feel like those are quite different in terms of the cognitive process. Like, and what you talked about earlier, the heuristics that we've developed as biological humans, like we find, since we don't know everything ourselves, we develop these social heuristics to like quickly get an opinion on something, even when we don't know about it. We look to who else is believing it. Like, those analogies that translate a little bit into the social media environment in my mind, but they kind of break apart in the AI chatbot version, where it's just like, no, here's the voice. I'm telling you what's going on. Do you see it like that? Are they actually really just two versions of the same thing?
I think there's some overlap and there's some aspects that are distinct too. Kathy, what Kathy might have been referring to is the fact that like the way that your social media stream is curated, the way that you would curate it if you were trying to optimize people finding truth is nobody would like this. It's like people would like drop off this social media platform. But if you were being shown a diversity of opinions of the type that you encounter in your everyday life, which includes like your uncle that says stuff you don't like, it includes the random person at the bus stop that you are overhearing their conversation, like that's what your social media stream would need to look like to have it not disrupt the way that we were evolved to handle information over a long period of time. The problem with social media streams is that's not how the algorithms are designed. Instead, they are designed in order to generally optimize user retention or to optimize engagement, meaning like the longer you're looking at the screen, the better. The type of things that keep our attention are not the things that are most likely to be true. As like those things we find boring, of like I just talked about. Instead, what we find interesting are things that would be interesting if they were true, which unfortunately is probably likely anti-correlated with like what's likely to be true. So what tends to rise to the top are things that are fabricated. They're things that are not true. The other things that hold our attention are things that like horrify us. So like things that are not good for our brains or our souls. I get served content that I'm like, I know how the algorithm works. I know I should like not look at it. I should like say, I'm not interested in this, but I can't stop looking at it. And so, horrific things also rise to the top and then get served to us more without anybody specifically designing for that. That's what ends up happening. So, that has all sorts of predictable effects in terms of distortion of people's beliefs. So, like you believe that, the horrible beliefs that you're observing are held more commonly in the population, and that can actually cause you to feel isolated from other people. It can cause people to feel demoralized about, making friends, interacting with people, dating. I see a lot of that these days, like people having the impression that like all men or all women have horrible views that are incompatible with me because of what they're seeing on social media. It's a distinct problem, but a related one to what happens when you go to something like ChatGPT to ask for information. For all of these things, I think it's important to be sensitive to the fact that the way that we work is fixed. It's like we are only open to changing our minds in particular moments, which is when we are uncertain. Those tend to be the moments that like we might go to something like ChatGPT with a question. When we get information from one source, it's not an unbiased source. I was like, it's not a source that is free of fabrications. We know that there's lots of problems with, the responses people get, but the biggest problem I see is the fact that it's like, it is a single source, and I worry about, the degradation of the diversity of opinions that we need in order to like make progress, innovate, and also just get excited about stuff. Like your curiosity, is piqued when you are uncertain about something, when you have a question. The best thing to do to encourage curiosity to blossom is counterintuitively like not actually getting an answer right away. Like you don't want to give somebody a short answer. Curiosity is kind of like an itch. You like want to know the answer to a particular thing. But a lot of the things that pique curiosity are things that are nuanced. They're not known. That's why they're interesting. And the best thing that you can do for a person in that moment is not pretend like there is an easy answer, but instead let the itch continue, because that's what causes somebody to explore all around the question that they're interested in. It's like that's what encourages the development of strategies. So
yeah, I'm just going to go back to the social media versus AI chatbot for a moment, because for two reasons. First of all, I want you to discuss like the fact that when you're in a social media environment, it feels like people think this. You know, it's like it seems like a community that is telling you stuff. It seems like an agreed upon opinion. So it seems like you're in a crowd of people that are all saying the same thing versus a chatbot, which is like one person or like one voice. So it makes it feel like maybe a god. I don't know. Like what is it that convinces us when we're convinced? Not all of us are. So when you're going to something like ChatGPT, so when you're going to like a chatbot, the thing that's driving you there is like you really want to know this one answer, this one piece of information. If you get a short, confident, pithy response from something that is held up as an all-knowing source, something that's better than people, that's exactly the kind of thing that satisfies that desire for info. You're like, okay, I got it. I'm done now. But it also extinguishes the curiosity flame. And it's unlike anything we've had access to. Right. Well, that's what I was going to say.
That's where I want to go. This is
okay. Just that,
this
like,
kicks ass.
With social media, you get drawn into a conversation that's already happening. Whereas with AI chatbots, you get to ask questions. Like you get to ask, here's the thing I want to know. And that seems really different.
they're very different. I was like, they have different distortion problems, I would say.
I love what you're saying about killing the spark of curiosity. I just like, first of all, it reminded me of the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which I was made to read back in high school. I'm glad that I was. And the author talks about being stuck on a problem. He's talking about fixing something with the gas tank of a motorcycle, and you've got a screw. He's got a screw that he needs to take out, and now he has stripped the cross point of the screw, and now he's really stuck. He's stuck on this part of the problem, and he spent a while in the book talking about how that is the best time in your life. Like cognitively, when you're stuck, that's when you start to look, as you said, outside the box. What else can I do? I'm going outside the edges of the problem as I understood it. And like, it's a celebration of stuckness. And I think, you're saying when you talk to a chatbot, you never get stuck. The friction is removed. You get the answer. Boom.
Even if you should be stuck.
Yeah. And I had this experience
there's not really an answer.
Just last week. My buddy texted me, thank God I have friends like this. He was mystified by the Brita water filter that he had, and it was going drop, drop, drop into the bottom. And he was watching it drop, 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 drop. But the drops were making different sounds. And sometimes it was really loud and other times it was really muted. But he sent me a video of this because this is the kind of texting that we do. And he was like, what do you think is going on? Why are the drops making different sounds? And he was like, I'm asking you before I asked ChatGPT, just so that you know. So I thought about it for a second, wrote him an answer, and then he asked ChatGPT. And ChatGPT gave a long, authoritative, and really useless answer. I'll spare you the details, but there may have been some correct science in there, but it was just, I felt the spark of curiosity die. It used to be fun to think about what was happening inside the bottom of that Brita water filter. And now it's just a boring section of a textbook. So it was I'm very happy I had that experience because now I've had it and I could talk about it on this podcast. I want you to forecast what happens if a young person in a stage of their life when they're learning, what happens if they have that experience over and over? What will their curiosity look like eventually?
I'm very worried. Did I mention last time my childhood fascination with Bigfoot?
No.
Oh,
say more. Say more.
I will say more. So I grew up in the swamp. There's not a lot going on. We did not have a library that was nearby. There were a lot of animals. That was fun, but I was a lack of cognitive stimulation at some point once you've met all of the different turtle species. So my neighbor one day mentioned Bigfoot, and I had never heard of Bigfoot. And he's like, there's an evolutionary link. There's photos of him. He's in the forest. And I was like, that sounds important. Why are we not all going to look? Somebody's seen him and there's a photo. Let's get on that. And so I was a nerd. I went to school with the library. So I immediately went to the library and I was like, there's this guy named Bigfoot, and my librarian was like, I know. And I was like, show me how to use the card catalog. This was my entire motivation for learning how to use the card catalog because why else would you? And so, she showed me how to use the card catalog. I lost track of the name of the book. There was one book that was in there that was Bigfoot is real. And I wanted that book, and that book was not in stock at my local school library, so we ordered it.
Because the guy who told you about Bigfoot had it.
Right.
Maybe Bigfoot did. It could be a whole conspiracy. I was like, you know what? Bigfoot has not appeared on any of our belief surveys recently, and I was like, I wonder if that one is still around. So Bigfoot was not in there, but the librarian, because she's a human, I was like, she noticed I had an interest in Bigfoot, and she's like, it's going to take a few weeks. And Bigfoot is real, may never arrive, actually. But in the meantime, here's a book about conspiracy theories. Here's a book about trick photography. I was like, she gave me a book about the two girls in the UK that used trick photography in order to convince the whole country that fairies were real. That was a fascinating read. I was wanting to scratch the itch that was I just want to, I want the evidence Bigfoot is real. But since that wasn't available, things that were nearby were pretty interesting. And by the time Bigfoot is real had arrived, I had a totally different context by not getting the information that I wanted directly, by having to wait for that information. By not getting a short, pithy answer, I developed some of the foundational interests that really still shape the research program of the lab that I'm running today. And that was really important for my development. I know I have 100 stories of other people that also were curious about one thing. They couldn't get that information because it was hard. And so they built skills and information and knowledge around the thing that they really wanted. And the kids these days are losing that. I really feel like we're doing them a disservice by pretending like we're offering them this thing that gives them short answers, and we're like, that will help them develop their curiosity. Like that's only said by people that don't know anything about curiosity.
Right.
That extinguishes their curiosity. That does not encourage it. Giving kids a short, confident answer, especially one that's like not even reliable, is one of the worst things you could do to develop their interest, their curiosity, and their knowledge downstream. So that's a big concern for me.
Do you think it'll happen? I mean, I'll just say
I see it happening. Yeah, I have a contrasting story. I have a much younger little sister who was interested in Slender Man and did a quick search, concluded he was real, and then was done. Didn't revisit it. So it hasn't gone back to it since. We had some, as she knows, Slender Man is not real. Also, she showed me what she saw, and I would have thought Slender Man was real if I had seen what she saw also. Yeah, she has struggled to develop interests, I think in part because she's been offered it's really like a lie of easy access to information.
It's really it's just like the way that you're describing it and evoking it. It's really powerful to me. It's like that. It's no longer like a hallway with a lot of doors. It's just like every question is just like a dead end. Like, here's the answer. That's it. There's like no other where to go. And it sounds so dreadful. I just can't.
Yeah. I want ChatGPT to have that little sound effect at the end of each.
Yeah, just like slam the door. Like in case you're. But what's crazy is the gaslighting with the follow-up question, right? There's always this like, oh, do you want me to say more about blah blah blah? It's just like, but it's just like, oh, do you want to go into a shitty corner of this dead end? Like it's oh.
Kathy, I think you just fixed it. We're about to start studying interventions format-wise for like how things like these transformer-based chatbots might do less damage to kids who are using them. And I love the idea of giving the answer and then being like,
yeah. No, it's just like, or just like that roll your eyes emoji, something.
Celeste, I hoped that we would get in this podcast to where you tell us how we can avoid this terrible future, but I'm just deciding, executive decision, you're coming back again to talk about how to avoid this.
Oh, thank you, Celeste, for figuring this all out. Thank you.
But next time, I don't think I have time, but we're building the platform right now. So by next time, I will know how close we are to being able to test the fart noise intervention. Kathy, you might have solved it.
Oh my god. We're going to talk about Celeste's work with kids next time you're on, because it's fascinating in its own right. It deserves its own podcast. Celeste Kidd, thank you so much for joining us
on this one.
What's that?
We went down too many great detours.
You know what? That's just what happens with Celeste, and it's okay. It's okay. It just means she's coming back.
I think it's a Louisiana thing. I think it's a Louisiana thing.
You know what? Also good. Thank you so much for coming on with us again, and we'll see you next time, Celeste. And thank you so much to everybody who's listening, and thank you, Aaron, for producing our podcast. And we'll see you guys next time with the AI Skeptics. Thank you.
So long, AI Skeptics.
Just hold